Welcome to Vocal Exploration through Warm-Ups, a presentation of the Singers Symposium, sponsored by DebraLynn.org. This evening's class will begin with some introductions and helpful information from our three talented instructors, Debra Lynn, Cay Outerbridge, and Kathleen Hansen. They'll share their approaches and strategies for improving our vocal skills through warm-ups. Then we'll have 3 hands-on breakout group sessions with each instructor, and we'll end with a question and answer time with all instructors together with the full group. Before we begin this unique singer event, there are a few housekeeping items. Attendees are muted, but we will enable unmuting as needed during the evening. The class is being recorded and all registrants will receive an email within a week with the video link. We only ask that you do not share it to social media. We've enabled a speech-to-text transcription option, should you wish to use it. You can use the chat to communicate with us, and we will use the chat to post links to related information for you. And finally, a link to a very brief survey will be provided near the end of this evening's class. Your feedback is appreciated, and we ask that you please complete it before you leave the Zoom. To kick off tonight's symposium event, it is my pleasure to introduce Debra Lynn.
Hi, everybody. Yay. Welcome, everybody, to the second Singers Symposium event. We are really glad you're here. As we come through this pandemic and its impact on the world of singing, my heart has felt this desire to bring my work and the work of other well-respected voice and performance instructors to you, to support your vocal development, as well as your healing and rejuvenation. In the a cappella community, many of us are preparing to return to the competition stage. And I have received many emails and messages asking how singers can get their voices to engage again more efficiently after almost 2 years of being socially distanced. Tonight, Kathleen Hansen, Cay Outerbridge, and I will be taking you inside our philosophies and strategies around warming up the voice in order to help you feel more in control of your instrument. After we share a little brief discussion overview with you on the front end, we will be moving into these 3 breakout rooms. This will give us the ability to interact with you more personally tonight. You will have about 25 minutes with each of us. Once we've rotated through the groups, we will come back together for a Q&A session at the end with all 3 of us. Tonight, remember to put your questions in the chat throughout the evening, both while you're in with the individual instructors and then also when we're in the big group Q&A at the end, okay? So without further ado, let's welcome Kathleen and Cay and get this party started.
Yay!
Hi, you guys!
Hey, everybody!
Yay! So
good to be here.
Good to see you too. So glad to have you back again. So I thought maybe before we officially broke out into these other rooms and started, that each of you could just speak to your philosophy, what does warming up mean to you, and whatever you feel like it would be really helpful for people to know before they come in and meet you in person. Who wants to go first? Cay, want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah. So warm-ups can do so many things, but I think two big parts of a vocal warm-up are, one, getting your voice ready for the task at hand, right? Whatever that means, releasing tensions from the day, or getting your voice in balance, getting yourself just ready to sing, ready to do what you're about to do. And the second part is building awareness and building new skills and developing the voice and learning new things about your instrument. And so it can be a great educational opportunity as well for yourself, or if you're with a group, getting the group all singing in the same way, in the same approach, same process, and just preparing you and helping you to achieve whatever you've been struggling with. The warm up is the first place to go to try and do that. So just a couple words on that, but yeah, I'll turn it.
Awesome. And tonight you're going to work a little bit from both the individual and the group perspective, correct?
Yeah,
in your
absolutely.
process. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm
awesome,
hoping in my
awesome.
breakout rooms that we can, I'll hear from you about what you want to talk about and what you want to learn about, and we can sort of tailor to you and get your questions answered and give you a framework for talking about warm-ups and talking about our vocal instrument. So
Awesome. Okay, Kathleen, like how do you
What can I
think
say?
about what? Yeah, right. I know we could all go ditto.
So over the last couple of years in particular, I've taken an extra deep dive into what individuals can do kind of easily and on their own to work on our own unique vocal skills, especially then under the umbrella using the ideas of warm up or vocal skill building or exercises to do that. And I think often when we hear the term warm up, we're thinking like, okay, just get everything ready to go. But I find that there's such crossover when we do these things. Often we'll do some real gentle things at the beginning until our voice is going. But if you've been speaking all day already, you might not need to do so much of that gentle stuff right at the beginning. So the exercises that I do and then kind of include under the broad warm up umbrella, they're not necessarily just for the beginning of a practice session, or here are things that I do check mark before I begin diving into singing. Because to me, this is already the work. We're already doing the work. This is it. We don't have to like have the page open and work on measure 47 to be working on our voices. So they can be really integrated into our vocal practice. At a broad level, I believe it's very important to kind of understand what various exercises do and why we would choose to use them, when we would choose to use them. So for example, if our tone is breathy, I might say, okay, we're going to choose one exercise, which I'll talk about in my breakout. Or if we're having trouble negotiating our passaggio or our break, making the transition from chest to head voice or vice versa, we can select an exercise that's tailored around that. So kind of layering onto that, if we understand what our instrument is doing, even just broadly, even loosely, what parts of our body are in charge of doing what general things, then we can use those kind of categories to figure out which way to go when. And then once we understand those things, like this is a warm-up that does this, and this is a part of my voice that's kind of responsible for working together and doing this other thing, then we can design our warm-ups and our exercises and our rehearsal techniques in a way to kind of maximize functionality, release tension, make sure we're singing our very best from the get-go.
From the get-go. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's wonderful. It's funny, we did the symposium before, we all kind of went like this and it was like very cool, like cross the squares. So here we are again. So, I'm reminded of a story that was told about Tony Bennett and James Taylor. So Tony Bennett was evidently doing a gig or whatever, and he and James Taylor were working together, and James, for some reason, asked him about his vocal warm-up. And Tony basically said, yeah, I do it in 10 minutes. And he taught it to James Taylor, and then James Taylor took it from there into his career and into his life. And so it's always kind of a mystery is, okay, how can somebody in the bel canto world warm up their voice in 10 minutes and be done, like ready to go? So this work from this perspective is all about structure. So the warm up, I have literally been doing, I know this is crazy, the same warm up for 30 years, and it takes 10 minutes. but its purpose, like when you start to interact with other warm-ups, it's like, okay, now we're going to work, like you say, in another level. We're going to focus on this, or we're going to integrate with this. We're going to get ourselves in a particular sound, or we're dealing with a particular issue, right? So it's like, for me, this conversation is really cool to have sort of the big picture of all of it. Yeah. So I don't know. Did you want to add anything to your thoughts you've had so far before we break off?
I'm ready to go if you are.
Yeah. Let's do this thing. Okay. So everybody, we're thrilled you're here, and you'll get to see each one of us tonight over in these little breakouts for the next 3 sessions. Hi, everyone. Yay, so nice to see you all. Nice to see you all. Some of you I know, some of you I don't, but we'll get to interact a little bit tonight with this process. I'm just going to click over to the other room. So we've got two pages of folks. I know most of you all know the hand raise, but if you're, because we've got two groups, probably if you can use the little hand raising action, which is down there somewhere in the reactions on your toolbar, that would be easiest, perfect, because that'll send you to my visibility. And if for some reason I don't see you, I'll just kind of keep checking in with you. All right, so I think what I'd like to do is just sort of jump into this, and then we'll interact with questions as we go along. All right. Now, in the bel canto, so I've just made this bold statement, okay, that a bel canto warm up can be done in 10 minutes. So just by a show of hands, how many of you all warm up in 10 minutes now? Like, oh, and you know, I'm looking and I'm some of these folks are people that work with me. So yay. So there are a couple of specific things that we are focused on in the warm-up process. So I'm going to have you all just jump in with me real quick. The first one is structurally about the facial engagement. Okay, so how many have been asked in some context that their face needs to be more lifted while they're singing? Anybody? Like, you know, that you're, yeah, right? So this is like consistent. And how many folks, when they are being asked to lift their face, they're like, I am lifting my face. And then you go home and you look in the mirror and you're not lifting your face. Okay, this is a very difficult thing for our body and mind to understand initially. Okay, so I'm gonna take you into a warm up. Before I do, I want to sort of ground you into, okay, what is a facial lift in bel canto? So I'm gonna have you put your fingers right under your nose, and I want you to press into the gum line. You feel that, like where the gums are, and then there's that indentation, and then your cheekbones start. All right, now press in there. And now what I'd like to ask you to do is lift your cheek muscles up off the gum line by a half, not even a half an inch, a quarter of an inch. It's a tiny little, And now take your fingers away and leave that there. And everybody's sort of in a pseudo sneer. It's kind of, okay, it's like you've smelled something bad, or you're sort of sneering, which is not always the most attractive position. Okay. But I just want you to, as we do this exercise, we're going to do it a couple ways so that you can feel the distinction in this piece of the puzzle. So the first exercise, and like I said, I have literally been doing the same warm-ups, and actually the same 3 warm-ups for 30 years. All right. I do other warm-ups for other things if I want to, but this takes care of the preparation of the voice. So I'm just going to turn on my pitch pipe here. And what I'm going to say, gentlemen, if you take the pitch down the octave, you should still be in a good range for yourself. But if you feel like you need to take a different pitch, that's okay too. And what I would love is for you all to just try the exercise with me, and let's see what you notice about this particular piece. All right. So I'm going to start on a low G. Sorry, my long pitch pipe. And so make sure make sure you're muted on your thing. Otherwise your privacy, will be, yes, we protect our privacy here. So I'll demonstrate this first. So I'm going to hum up and back a half step. That's all it is. So everybody try that right there where you are. Bravo. Now, I want you to drop the face. Don't be very austere. And I want you to do it again. Here's the pitch. Now this time, drop the face and do it. And what do you notice? So when you do it with the face collapsed, where do you feel the vibration? It like falls back into the back of the instrument. All right, now go back here to your little mini, like, I'm up to something. I feel it like a sort of a mischievous smirk. All right, so let's try it now. And what do you notice? It moves. And that vibration, exactly, Susie, it's right here in the front of the face. All right. Now, what I do is I take this from a low G, which for most people, okay, I wouldn't necessarily always say tenors start this low. Tenors might want to wait 2 or 3 notes and start around a B flat under middle C, just because of the nature of the chest voice and the tenor. It can tire out the tenor a little bit more. So I'm just going to do a pattern, and then why don't you echo me? I'm going to walk up and you walk with me. All right. So we'll start there on that one again. And now you. Bravo. And then. Sorry, I just adjusted my sound to original sound. I just realized Zoom doesn't like music sometimes. So if you missed me there, that's what it was. Let me see if this is better this time. So, can you all hear me well? Okay, perfect. So do that one. And then we'll go up a half. Try that one. Bravo. And up a half. And one more up a half. Now, does anyone notice right around here, the voice starts to misbehave? It's like a little, like, oh, it sort of wants to wiggle a little bit. And we're approaching first passaggio. So now let me go into a little bit more depth about how we do this exercise and why it's so good for us, all right? So everyone just say, like a little stoplight. Try that again. And you feel that when you do it without an H, I'm going to have you try it this way. Add that little H right there. You notice it doesn't coordinate the same way. All right, it doesn't stabilize the vibration. All right, so one of the key principles in the bel canto is that everything that we're doing is internal. So even when we're warming up initially, what we're trying to do is activate our sound inside our body, which there may be a number of you that are, have been singing a long time that know that you don't necessarily have to warm up at full volume to get the voice to behave itself. As a matter of fact, I usually recommend that you don't, that you think of it as almost an introspective activity. So I'm going to have you put one finger right under your nose, okay? And now we're going to do a little bit more of the exercise, but I'm going to ask you to articulate just to the M. So it's going to be like, try that one. Bravo, and up a half. And up a half. Bravo, up a half. And one more. Now, we're actually going to take it down. So I'm going to show you how I do this exercise, all right? And I'll tell you that when I was first beginning my professional career and doing this, my 4-year-old son, who is now, I'm going to age myself, he's now 32. He was 4, and he was in the back seat, and I'd been doing it like I do it, which is I rock up and I rock back and I rock up and I rock back. And for whatever reason, I wasn't feeling particularly up vocally that day, and I just kept doing the exercise. And he was like, "Mommy, can you do a different exercise, please?" And he was 4. So this is one of those ones that's been with me a long time. So now, we've got to, we're going to take a pitch here. So we'll start on this high, this D. Let's do that one. now we're going to come down a half. And now you. And you want to feel that little buzzy feeling happening here. As soon as you lose that feeling of that vibration right under your nose, or you feel it start to move back, that is one way we know that the facial engagement has dropped. So this exercise is designed kinesthetically for the brain to keep reinforcing forward lift. And what I'm going to tell you about this forward lift in terms of warming up is the more you keep it activated with everything else you do, the more the nasal resonators come online to help you so that your sound actually stabilizes with what we call a more forward placement. For me, it was always a more Italianate placement, but in the world of a cappella, when we're trying to get that clean, in-tune, accurate sound, these resonators here are really important. So if you've been feeling at all heavy in the pandemic and not exactly feeling like smiling, which many, many people are in that place, right? Then this exercise just gets you sort of reanimated, if you will, and major assistance to you in your overall approach to your singing. All right, so now I'm going to take you to the second exercise, and this one we're going to start on a D. I'm going to demonstrate it and then we'll talk about it after we do it a couple times. So, ya, 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 ya. So everybody just do that, right? In your range. Ready? And. Awesome. Now, you may have noticed when you do it that the body wants to go, ya, 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 and collapse. So let's collapse the face and watch what happens. Here we go. Ya, 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 ya. And you feel it, you feel that collapse occur. So now we're going to do it, and this time it's going to be where we actually activate it, and we're going to all point up as we do this, the last note. Okay, so here we go. Ya, 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 ya. And you notice that you controlled the collapse. So this idea that everything is going up as opposed to going down. I just saw a post or a Facebook thing, Harbor City Chorus, Dale Syverson was doing a retreat, and there is a quote by a very famous teacher in the Sweet Adeline's world saying, it's our voices, the notes go up and down, but our sound always goes up. And I think that's a really good reminder that both with our facial lift up, but also as we're vocalizing, that our approach is always up, all right? Now, the ya-ya exercise is designed to do something for you internally. So I'm going to ask you all to exhale gently, and I'm going to have you inhale gently. Bravo, and release. Now, I want you to take what's called a surprise breath, like someone has just surprised you. Here we go. And release. And let's do that one more time. And release. Bravo. Now, you notice that the space you just made when you did it twice was the same space. Inside your body, we have the capacity to open up the inside of our mouth and stabilize it like it's a cathedral. Now, how many of you all remember, being taught a lot of soft palate lift? How many of you all like soft palate? Okay, so we're going to lift our soft palate now. Oh, Julia Childs is going to be singing barbershop or a cappella or something. It's wonderful for opera, but it's not entirely always very efficient for anything we want to do in the contemporary world. Okay, soft palate kind of sets us up in an angled position internally. And it's not that it's not engaged in bel canto, it is, but it's going to happen because of this forward lift, where everybody take your fingers like this and just lift up the upper jaw a little tiny bit as if you're got dentures in there. Wow, yeah, a lot of room in there suddenly up. You feel that? So in this work, being more focused on this up space is what activates our resonators to help us when we're singing. So on the ya-ya exercise, when we go to do it, we're going to open up to that surprise position and now try to stabilize there. So here we go. And I'm disappearing in my Zoom screen here. Sorry, everybody. So here we go. So we're gonna let me pick the next pitch. Do an E flat. We're gonna open up, hold still. Ya, 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 ya. Bravo. And how many of y'all are feeling your sound when you're more open like that expand? That you're actually getting more, we're going to call it more resonance. Try it a couple times on your own. I'll give you the pitch, okay? Here we go. So we're opening up and go. Bravo, and up a half. Very cool. So now let me show you something. I'm going to have you all pulse your hands. For those of you that are kinesthetic, you may feel something really cool. So you're going to open up like we just did. We'll do the same one. And I want you to pulse your hands as you articulate backwards. Here we go. Ready, and. Now, did anybody notice anything as you were doing it? What'd you notice, Joanne? You can come off. You can come off on. There you can.
Well, oddly enough, it actually made me go more forward, and I'm not sure why that.
Well, you're magic.
I was supposed to do that, but earlier I had been a bit further back, and then doing this, magically made me go forward.
Exactly. So you are magic. All right. Everybody in this room is magic. All right. And this is my message. Okay. All about your magic. So when you activate the face, and then reinforce your air dynamics. In bel canto, the objective is to reinforce our stability. So exhale, everybody, again, and just do a surprise silent breath in. And you notice how your bodies all went up. Like everybody, I could see them. It's like, whoa, there we are. Okay. So in these mechanics, what happens is as you pull towards self and you activate the sound this way, I know this is going to sound crazy, but you are designed internally this alignment that happens automatically between that back wall that you're feeling pop backwards in the surprise breath and your vocal folds and your air suddenly helps you sing with more ease. It's like you're designed to do this, but we have to go backwards to get there, okay? And this is where it gets confusing with the singing process, okay? So now we've got these two exercises. We've got the humming, and by the way, these exercises, I actually have a new app that's out. It is not glitch free right now, so it's coming, but not quite yet. But the exercises that I'm doing tonight are on that app in the free version that's just released from Apple, and it's just released from Android. So the first one that we do is the humming. And what I do is I start on a low G, I go up through first passaggio to about an F or F sharp, and then I go back down. I don't take the humming exercise beyond around F or F sharp. All right. It's almost designed just to get you sort of going and activate this sort of vibrational process. The ya-ya exercise, when you do the ya-ya, is all about reinforcing this inner space of you, which I call your inner cathedral. It's sort of like, I want you to try something. You all are muted again. Think of a little song that you have in your mind, okay, something you can sing behind your mic. And I want you to open up to this point of suspension and this sort of surprise place and hold still, sing your song and pulse backwards and see what happens. Here we go. So you're going to open up and just start singing. Bravo, bravo, come on off. Now, did anyone notice something about their singing that time that was different? Yes, Susie.
You mentioned it earlier, and I thought, well, maybe I'm just doing it wrong, but it was a lot freer. especially with getting back into singing. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, there's my voice. It's coming back.
There's your voice. It's not gone. It's not gone. Did you happen to have, I know it's a personal question, so if you don't want to answer, it's okay, but did you happen to get COVID in this process over the last 2 years? Okay.
Touch, knock on wood, I didn't get it at all.
Yeah, I'm so glad. Well, if anyone in the room has gotten it, you may be noticing your folds don't want to coordinate the same way. And what I'm kind of discovering and what I believe is that when COVID impacted the vocal fold mechanism, chances are there was a lot of swelling. And if you were coughing a lot, that is for sure. If it was just you had COVID, you didn't really have a cough, but you're still feeling the voice not coordinating, what I'm feeling is that the folds got swollen by the process. And when they're swollen, they won't coordinate, especially if we thrust upward. So just be mindful that this work, if you just start doing it a little bit of just kind of reinforcing yourself this way, the vocal folds, it's sort of like, it's like you're taking all the pressure off them. So now I'm not sure. I think we're going to get oh no, I see a timer. I can see it. Okay, I know how much time we got. So let me just go back and talk about these two exercises again. I'm going to give you one more. So on the humming, okay, key things that are important. Facial lift, that the muscles come up, so you've got like a upward smirk on your face. You're articulating directly to an M. And the M is going up. So it's like I'm going, good, good, Campbell's soup ad, as opposed to good. If I go down, it's going to collapse. If I go up, it's going to reinforce my resonation process, okay? For those of you that have done this exercise for a while, for the advanced piece of this, your mindset wants to be that you're trying to grab that vibration right away and stabilize it. So instead of sort of letting the loosey-goosey where it's sort of almost a little vibrato-y, we're trying to grab it and stabilize. Feels like a stoplight. Try that for me. You feel that? It's a very quick, very fast stabilization of the vibration. And then I am keeping that stable vibration through the exercise. And it feels like it's going this way. It doesn't feel like it's going up and down. It feels like it's going sideways. Try that with me. Bravo, bravo. So that's how you do this humming exercise at the highest level of efficiency. All right, now the ya-ya exercise, I start on a D above middle C. That's the top note. That's the 5 of the 5-3-5-3-1 pattern. And I will go up through second passaggio. So we would take it all the way up to maybe an E or an F on the above second passaggio. If you can't go that high, don't worry about it. You take it as high as you can, and then you come back down. All right. If you take the exercise up and then you bring the exercise down, you will go through both passagios, and you'll go through both passagios from the ascending position and the descending position, and that will help move you towards one voice, one smoothed instrument, all your registrations all like balanced. All right. For those of you that may or may not make sense, it's okay. But bel canto is a one voice approach. We know we have a chest register, a middle register, a head register, but we're basically trying to smooth it out so nobody knows where our passagios are. And ultimately not even us. All right. Now the last exercise it says I only have 57 seconds. The last one I'm going to just demonstrate for you is the knee exercise. Knee, 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 knee. Everybody try it with me. Okay, wait, somebody's unmuted. Hang on, make sure you're muted just for your protection. There you go. Bravo. So now, very quickly, what I'm going to say about this one. This is a passaggio exercise. You start on a low G, and you can go up through your second passaggio. And actually, you can go as high as you want in this one. But you're going to do it very evenly and slowly. Knee, 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 knee. Everybody try that. Bravo. Now, what our body wants to do as we start to go higher is go knee, 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 knee. Knee, 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 knee. We start to thrust and push at the up that point. So just know that you're just going to do it very, very evenly. Awesome. So you just do it very evenly, and that way you can start to control the thrust that wants to happen with our voice as we're singing. All right, everybody. 25 minutes goes pretty fast.
I want to start by getting a sense of sort of who we have in the room here. How many of you would consider yourself a solo singer? Let me get up the gallery so I can see your responses. Once again, as solo singers, raise your hand. Yeah, okay, we got a couple who are maybe a little interested. How about quartet singers? A couple quartet singers, love that. How about chorus singers? Oh, lots of chorus singers, love that. Great, great, great. How many, do we have any chorus directors or voice teachers in the room here? Yeah, cool, got one or two, great. I'm so excited to get to work with you and share a little bit of my approach. You just heard from Debra, correct? Cool. Okay, yeah. So my approach, there'll be some similarities perhaps and perhaps some differences, and we can celebrate all of those, and it's all about figuring out what works best for you, what gets you set up to make the best sounds and the sounds that you want to make. Rather than waiting till the end to have questions, I would love you to actually put the questions into the chat now if there's something specific that you want to sort of get out of this session. Something like, this is a question I've had for a long time, or I really hope Cay talks about this, or whatever it is. Throw the questions into the chat just so I can sort of tailor my presentation a bit to, you know, answer some of your questions as we go. And of course, we'll have a couple minutes at the end to wrap up anything as well. While you do that, let me just tell you a little bit about me. I am my name is Cay Outerbridge. I am a voice teacher from the Boston area. I also direct a men's barbershop chorus. I sing in a quartet. I am a barbershop arranger, learning track maker, contest judge. Basically just all things barbershop, all things singing. I just love it and I do it all. And I'm so excited to share a little bit of my approach with you today. One of my big influences, if you saw me on the last Singer Symposium event, you know that one of my big influences is the McCloskey technique, which centers around 6 areas of relaxation. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to read some of these questions. I can't always tell inside my head whether I'm resonating. Is there a trick to that? Resonating. I'll tell you, if you're making sound, you are resonating. You just are. How well you're resonating or how if you're resonating in the way that you want to be resonating is a whole other question. And it is sometimes tough to tell from inside. And we'll give you a process today to set the voice up to be its most resonant self. Make the first notes of each piece sound as good as the second verse. Awesome. Yeah, so we're going to talk about a very vocal health friendly approach today to getting the voice operating with ease, with efficiency, and with just total freedom. I'm looking for a fix or warm up to regain higher notes. Seems to be crackle much lower than there used to be one. Yeah, okay, so the work that we'll do together will apply to any notes that you sing, and particularly those high notes. And keep throwing in the questions, and we'll have some time at the end if there are any other wrap-up questions that we want to ask. But we're going to jump into the work here. So when we think about the voice and the anatomy of the voice, we can separate the muscles into a couple different categories. So when we think about the vocal folds themselves, which are these two little things that vibrate and make our tones, and the muscles that control the vocal folds, we can think of those as the intrinsic muscles of the larynx. There are a bunch of muscles in here. I'm not going to go through the names of all of them, but they are all housed in there. They're all tiny, and they are magical and amazing and enable us to do everything that we want to do. But the other category is the extrinsic muscles of the larynx, which are all of the muscles that attach on the outside and can impact what the inside intrinsic muscles are able to do. And so the work that we're going to do today is going to focus on these extrinsic muscles, releasing these extrinsic muscles, giving them a full range of motion, total freedom, total ease, total relaxation, so that the intrinsic muscles can respond to whatever our brain tells them to do. And our brain is just like, let's make this sound, let's make it this loud, let's make this this kind of quality. Our brain will say that, this pitch, whatever. Our brain will say that, and these will respond, and they'll be able to respond best when the extrinsic muscles are not getting in the way. So we are going to talk about some of these extrinsic muscles, and I'm going to give you a framework for thinking about relaxation that will allow you to get yourself ready to sing, but then also come back to these areas once we get into any song work or any singing that we do, and check that they're staying loose. So let's jump in together. The first area that we are going to talk about is the face. So you're going to take the pads of the fingers, and we're going to just go right to the top of the forehead, and we're just going to make little circles. Just moving the skin over the bone, encouraging the muscles to loosen. Breathing. Any stress that we've been holding from the day, we can let go. Particularly a furrowed brow, maybe if we're really frustrated, we can let that go. Let that soften. Go to the temples. Down under the eyes. In between the eyebrows. The cheeks. You can even let the jaw hang and loosen. You can massage that. Down to the upper lip. Lower lip, the jawline, letting all of that go. And as we go through these 6 areas, each one is going to add on to the previous one. So once we leave the face, we're going to keep the face loose, keep the face relaxed. Even though today I'll do a little bit more explaining, and we won't be doing them so super consecutively, but I'll explain them. But try to keep the face loose as we move on to the second area, which is the tongue. Tongue is super important to singing and has such an impact. And what we're going to do is a little bit of a silly tongue stretch, but it's quite specific in how I want you to do it. I don't want you to extend your tongue out as far as it can go. Instead, I want you to keep your tongue loose, floppy, and wide. And we're going to extend it, sort of feeling the stretch from the back until it just goes just over the bottom lip. Yeah, keeping it loose. Noticing that the tongue is wide, floppy. And if it doesn't gross you out too much, you can even tap your tongue. And it should feel nice and soft. If you feel that your tongue is hard, that means it's holding onto some tension. Instead, I want the tongue to stay loose and floppy. So we'll hold that out for 3, 2, 1, and let it slowly come back into the mouth. If we just relax it, it will come back to its resting position. Let's do that once again, relaxing the tongue over the bottom lip. Extending it out for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great job. Yeah, I'm seeing some great tongue release on the screens here. Keep the jaw loose as you do it, and just try and get that tongue comfortable with this slightly extended, slightly released position. Let's do that one more time, extending it out for 5. Great. 4, 3, 2, 1, and slowly back into the mouth. Great. So face loose, tongue loose. We're now going to go to the swallowing muscles. So we're going to take the thumbs underneath the chin, and I want you to swallow. Feel that little push down. Yeah, so those are the muscles involved in swallowing. I'm going to feel one other thing. Go to the larynx, the little bump there, and we're going to swallow. Yeah, so when we swallow, which direction does the voice go, the larynx go? It goes up. Yeah. So back to the question of resonance, right? So we're resonating the cavity from the larynx to the lips. And so when our larynx is higher, that cavity is shorter, and therefore will resonate less than when the larynx is a little bit more settled or a little bit lower. And so this is why we want those swallowing muscles to stay nice and relaxed while we sing, because if they're activating, they're probably tugging up on the larynx a little bit. So we're going to go to these swallowing muscles, and we're just going to push up very gently, encouraging the muscles, not forcing them, encouraging them to loosen, starting right in the center, and working your way to the sides. This whole squishy triangle underneath the chin. And that all stay loose. So the face loose, tongue loose, swallowing muscles loose. Now we're going to go to the jaw. And this is a tricky one to get the first time. But what we're going to aim to do is we're going to aim to move the jaw up and down with just the hands. So it looks like this. Yeah, and you may notice your jaw wanting to fight back against that. And that's very natural. When the mouth opens, the innate tendency is to is for your body to think, oh, time to chew, right? And so your mouth will then close. Your jaw likes to be involved in the process. But in singing, we want to train the jaw to stay out of it and stay loose, and so that the mouth can stay relaxed and the jaw can stay loose as we sing. Yeah, so we're going to keep trying to do that. If that's tough for you, that's okay. Keep at it, and over time, it will become easier and easier as your jaw starts to trust that it's okay for it to stay loose, okay for it to stay relaxed. If it's tough for you right now, you can just substitute with a little jaw massage and just try and get it as loose as you can. So face loose, tongue loose, swallowing muscles loose, jaw loose. Now we're going to go down to larynx, either side. You'll feel that little sort of shell that houses the vocal folds either side. We're going to very gently move it side to side. TMJ does make the jaw very tough. Yeah, I would substitute maybe with just a jaw massage or just a massage rather than necessarily trying to do that. It does make that quite tough. Yeah. Down the larynx, just gently moving it side to side, very gentle. And all this is doing is just checking. Is anything holding on it? Just a tiny little motion. Is anything holding on it? Is it clicking a little bit? Yeah, if we're feeling that, there's probably something maybe holding on to it or acting on it a little bit. And really we want to encourage the muscles to be a little bit more loose in their relationship to it. If we're experiencing who's experiencing some clicking? Great, a few of you. Let's do another tongue stretch. Keeping it wide and loose. Really let that back of tongue stretch and soften and stretch a bit. And let the tongue soften back into the mouth. Keeping the tongue loose in the mouth. Let's go back to the larynx. Sometimes that can get rid of a little of the clicking. If you're still experiencing some clicking, you're perhaps going too far side to side. You only need to move just a little bit. But over time, even just asking and being aware of these muscles will get them to loosen a little bit more, and maybe the clicking will go away. The sixth area, we've done the face, tongue, swallowing muscles, jaw, larynx. The sixth area is the neck, and I want you to watch me first. So we're going to take the head forward, and we'll feel that stretch in the back. And after hanging out here for a little bit, what we're going to do is we're going to rotate the head like a doorknob to sort of look at the right elbow, and that will let the stretch move. And we'll go back down center to the other side, back down center, and up. A whole lot slower than what I did, but let's all do that together. Here we go. Head down, forward, breathing, letting gravity do its work, letting that back of neck stretch and release. Breathing, letting the belly release, keeping the jaw soft, and we'll slowly look at the right elbow. Slow movement to rotate, keeping the head down, breathing, just finding a gentle release. One more breath cycle in this position and back down center. Great, and then slowly to the other side. Only going as far as is comfortable, letting gravity do the work. So looking at the left elbow, breathing, letting gravity do its work, hanging out here, letting these muscles stretch and relax. Back down center, letting those back of neck muscles soften again. And then slowly up into a great stance. If we weren't trying to get through a whole lot of content, you can spend a little bit more time on any of these areas, being patient with yourself, feeling where there's tension, and becoming really aware of how your body's doing on the day, right? Sometimes maybe if you've had a really stressful morning or something, you might notice, oh, my jaw's a little tight because I've been grating my jaw all morning. Or if you're scared or something, you may notice that your neck is a little more tight. Any of these areas might be tighter or looser on the day. And so the warm-up is all about loosening these muscles, getting ourselves back to this default of relaxation. And over time, this is my daily routine. These six areas, these six specific exercises, I do this every day. And what doing it every day allows for is now my body is used to these cues, right? So if I need my jaw to soften a little bit, if my jaw's feeling a little tight, I'll just go. And since my voice is used to that process, used to that reminder, my jaw will soften instantly because it's built up that relationship, and I've built up that awareness and that connection and understanding of my instrument. How long do you take for these daily exercises? Yeah, so with someone who's new to this, new to these areas, it can take 15 minutes. I had one student one time where we spent maybe the first half hour doing this just because his jaw was really, really tight. And so we had to spend a good chunk of time loosening that. For me now, or with an experienced singer, it takes 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 8 minutes maybe, depending on the day. But it just gets me in a space to suddenly be able to sing so much freer, so much easier. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go through some exercises to put this work in the context of vocalizing and singing. So if you can stand up, that would be great. If not, we're going to sit tall. Keeping what Debra Lynn talked about of the open body, a gentle expansion of the ribs. And let's take the hand onto the belly. This might be a little bit different than what Debra Lynn was encouraging, but with the hand on the lower belly, below the belly button, let's breathe in and out. We want to feel a gentle expansion of the lower belly. Here we go, in, out. As we breathe out, the belly should return back gently and slowly. Now let's go in again, just breathing, feeling that motion. And while that motion is happening with the lower belly, we're maintaining a nice openness and tallness of the rest of the body. Head balanced over the shoulders. Yeah. So now let's bring a little bit of awareness to here. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to breathe in. We're going to exhale just a little bit of air. Then we're going to attach a tone onto it. And it will sound like this. Here we go. Ah. Once again. Ah. One thing, you may already notice the voice feels freer or easier now that we've released some of these tensions. I know mine does. Even doing it a second time in a row here, my voice just gets freer and freer and more and more relaxed. Second thing I want you to bring attention to is your belly. What is your belly doing? Let's do that again. In. Ah. Anyone notice your belly suddenly tighten when you go to sing? Yeah. So if you're experiencing that, we're going to take the hand. We're going to do a little circle here. And we're going to aim for that. We're going to, like I said, we're going to let a little bit of air release, just in that same way as a normal exhale. Here we go. In, just exhaling. Noticing the tightening is not happening there. Here we go. Inhale, and we're going to exhale. And as we sing, aim to keep it exactly the same feeling, this exact same softness. Here we go. In. Ah. Yeah, once again, in. Ah. Aiming for maybe a lighter tone. Maybe will help to facilitate this. A little massage. But that is another area to sort of bring focus to is keeping looseness in the belly as well. That's not one of the 6 areas, but that's what I go to after the 6 areas. But we're going to loop back to the 6 areas to see how they apply. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the head. We're going to do a little up and down, sort of yes nod. Now with that same inhale, exhale, sigh, we're going to see if we can keep the head moving, keep the head balanced as we sing. Here we go. In. Ah. Yeah, once again, in. Ah. Anyone notice your head just wanting to stop as soon as you start to sing? Yeah. So that brings an awareness of, oh, my neck is used to helping. It's used to, when I try to sing, my neck is used to going, time to sing, right? Where really we want those neck muscles to stay nice and loose and let these guys do the work. Here we go. Once again, keeping that head moving, keeping it loose. In. Ah, yeah. Cool. If any of these areas are moving, that means they're not tight. Tension and tightness is a hold, and we want them to be able to move, to go to their full range of positions so that we can make any sound that we want. So keeping that head nice and free. That's one way to look at that. Let's look at a couple other areas before we turn to some questions. I saw a good question about how do I stop from raising my chin when I start to sing, and this is exactly how, right? Train the neck to stay loose. You can even do a massage instead. Keeping those muscles soft while you start to sing will keep the chin from raising, because that's why your chin is raising, is these muscles are tightening as soon as we start to sing. Oh, time to sing, right? That's what's happening. So now let's go to the tongue. Take your hands onto the jaw. Jaw's going to be still but released. And we're going to try to move the tongue side to side against the bottom lip. Keep the head still, the jaw loose. Even that might be a little tricky, but we're going to aim to keep that little motion of the tongue going. Again, if it's in a state of motion, it's not tense. So we're going to do the same singing activity here with the tongue moving. Here we go. In. Ah. Once again. Ah. Anyone notice that being tricky or your tongue wanting to stop? If we can keep the tongue moving, keep the tongue loose, that's going to be great for releasing any tongue tension. We can do the same thing with a little jaw motion or with face movement or here's another one. Let's take the thumbs under the chin. Let's see if these are tightening. So here we go. We're going to go in. Ah. And notice, is there any push down as we start to sing? Once again. Ah. Yeah. So just ways of building awareness and ways of getting you to your best individual sound, right? A lot of warm-ups, particularly for ensembles, for choruses or quartets, right? It's about, people tend to focus on how do we lock into each other. But I think the first step needs to be how can we enable us as individuals to be our freest singers, our easiest singers, and working at the individual level to get you as free as you can, as easy with your production as you can. That's the first step. If from there you want to do some work to unify or lock into each other, that's great. But the first step should always be, how can we get our singers, how can you get to your best state as a singer? So got a couple minutes for questions. But I'll say if anyone has questions that don't get answered or would like to some individual help with this, I'm always happy to answer emails or set up a time to work with you one-on-one. I would love to do that, but I'm happy to answer any questions that we have in the chat. Is a moderator want to read those, or should I just go through? I'm happy to go through.
Sure, you can go through. We've got about 2 minutes.
Great question from Carol. Debra has us lifting our cheeks to resonate, but that creates tension for me in the jaw. How to do both? So, 2 things. One, Debra and my approach don't map perfectly onto each other. There are some differences, and some things will work better for some singers and some will work better for others. That said, jaw release is not as much about jaw position as it is the state that the jaw is in. So I can sing ah, right, with the jaw release, but my jaw relatively closed, ah, with the cheeks lifted, or I can go ah, with the jaw more open. Both have the jaw in a state of release and relaxation, but simply put in the right position for the sound that I want. So we just don't want, the jaw to be really tight during that. Yeah, but if the jaw is just relaxed but still closed, then you can get that sound. I also would say perhaps you're just going too far and working too hard to lift this, where it's just a very gentle. I don't want to speak on Debra's approach because she's the expert on bel canto, so I don't claim to be telling you how to do her approach, but that's a possibility, is that you're just going too far with the instruction, and it's actually meant to be more of a subtle active action. And we'll also have a Q&A later. Yes. Okay. What are the questions? Do you have suggestions for maintaining singing with ease and no tension when performing? Awesome. Yes. Once we go into performance, like in front of an audience, we obviously don't want to be like checking in with our various areas, but these are things that you can do if you're singing, and you're just working on the technique of the singing, so and you know where your tension is, right? So I might be singing a song, and I might sort of just do a little yes nod with the head just to sort of check, oh, is that staying loose? Or maybe I'll take out the words and I'll just sing it on seeing if I can keep the tongue loose, or any of those areas, any of these ways that we've sort of hinted at, right, as ways of checking tension, releasing tension, getting stuff moving, massaging. All of that can be brought into anything that you're singing, and also, every time you breathe, using that as a moment to relax again. That's also a good way to sort of refresh and remind.
Nice,
so happy to hear that, Judy.
Compliment for you there in the chat.
Yeah. I'm so happy to read that, Judy. And
And what's so helpful about this presentation also, Cay, some of the folks may not know that you're a championship quartet singer. And so you're working, you're not just teaching this stuff, you're working on it with your own voice all the time.
That's right. Yeah, I at the start of the pandemic, actually, I'd already had some success as a singer, but at the start of the pandemic, I just felt like my voice was not where I wanted to be, and I was not singing as well as I wanted to be able to sing. And I got in touch with a McCloskey teacher, and she brought this awareness of my tensions and helped me to release these tensions. And I'm now singing better than I have ever sung in my entire life through this work. And it's always a check back in. There's always little tensions that will creep back in and want to sort of help me along, and I just have to keep saying, nope, I'm my best singer when those are out of the way and when it's just ease and freedom.
Exactly.
Cool.
Thanks so much, Cay. And we'll have lots of time later on in this session for more questions. So save your questions for Cay.
Hopefully we'll have some overlapping ideas for you to kind of cogitate upon and some new things to expand on a little bit. Kind of as I was talking about in our introductions, I really like to empower singers to be your own best vocal coach, because you're the one who's putting in the work. Do I think you should go see a voice teacher and take some lessons and have vocal coaches? Absolutely. But they're not with you all the time. So we need to kind of have a sense of ease and comfort around experimenting with our instruments and kind of have an idea of what does what. And so we can, if I'm experiencing this, here's something I can do to fix it. If I'm experiencing this, here's something I can do to make it a little bit better or a little bit easier. So one of the approaches I like to take is making sure that we kind of understand what of our instrument is doing what, and maybe label some different parts. Now, there are lots of different ways that you can look at this particular setup, and maybe you have some other names for things, and that's awesome, that's cool. I'm going to choose to break our instrument down into 3 parts. Every instrument has these. Maybe you've heard them before. Maybe you've heard it explained slightly differently. All good. I'm going to talk about the power source of the instrument, the kind of thing that initiates everything. I'm going to call that the activator. And then every instrument has something that vibrates. So we can call that the vibrator. And then every instrument has something that either filters the sound or that sound resonates. And we can call that the resonator. So I use the chat box a lot. I would invite you to use that. And I will just also preface this with wild guesses are fine. There are no points taken away for answers that are not the ones that I was thinking of. I just like to know what's in your head. I like to know how you process thoughts. All right. So in the vocal instrument, what would you say is the power source, the actuator? What kicks things into motion? What would you say that is in the chat box? I'll just give you a second. We'll see how the votes come in on this. Okay, so I would say that all of those answers are definitely involved. We can, in general, call that the air or the breath, but I like to extend this to everything that has to do with that. So your lungs, your abdominal muscles, the way we're standing, the way we're holding our instrument, all of those things can help. So thinking of our structure, working in an optimal way to get that air moving until it gets to what that vibrates. Yes, your vocal folds or your vocal cords, totally fine way to say that. And your vocal folds, we have to remember that they're pretty small. There are these 2, bits of tissue and muscle and help being coordinated by some cartilage and some other things in there that come together in a complex vibratory pattern. My vocal folds are about the diameter of a dime. You hold your fingers up, say like, they're not very big. Vocal folds that have been changed by testosterone at puberty are usually more the size of like a nickel. Those are still quite small. If you think about it, all these little things we're doing are these tiny little muscles and tissues in here. So we have the actuator, the air comes up, hits the vocal folds, they vibrate, and then it goes into the resonating chamber, the resonator. So for voice, what's the resonating chamber? It's the throat above the vocal folds in the mouth. And I think we can include the nose in that as well. However, I'm particularly interested in the part that we can impact. You can't change the shape of your nose very much. I mean, I can like flare my nostrils a little bit, but that's just giving me a couple millimeters. So we can really kind of play with the space in our upper throat and our mouth. We have a lot of things we can move in there, plus the big old hunk of meat that is our tongue, which is also going to move things around and shape our sounds a little bit more, right? So starting with that, I like to initiate our exercises, our vocal exercises, our warm-ups with things that will address each of those. So I want to start with a little bit of breathing. Let's come to a place of alignment, however that feels for you. Make sure that our spine is just kind of supporting us, that our head is stacked up on top of that, and let it go in a little bit of a bobblehead motion. And take a couple low, full breaths through your nose for now. And if your mouth hangs open a little, that's fine too. Just get some air in, see what your body does. Babies breathe perfectly. You watch their little bellies rise and fall. Toddlers sit perfectly, balancing that giant bowling ball head on top of that tiny little body. And then from there, we just start introducing dysfunctional patterns of everything. We start introducing stress. We start sitting weird. We don't move nearly as much as when we're little kids. And our breath gets maybe a little higher and more tense. And so in order to make singing feel more natural, we really want to kind of revert to some of those patterns we had when we were itty bitty. So that's what we're looking for right now. This is before we worried about what we looked like or what people thought of what we're doing. So we really want to allow that abdominal area to loosen and allow it to expand when we breathe in. Obviously, our lungs don't live down there, but we have the most control over those muscles. Let's create a little rib cage here with our fingers. Sternum in the middle. So when we breathe, our rib cage is ever so slightly going to lift and separate. It's just going to do this. Inhale, exhale. Now, what do we not want? We don't want it to go like heaving up and down. And we also don't want to over open it because that's just going to introduce tension. All those muscles in between our ribs, our intercostals and all those, they're not quite as flexible and on demand as the muscles around our abdominal area. So feeling kind of a 360 breath around kind of the belly area and your sides and your back will help. Someone asked a question in my other room about diaphragmatic breathing. I just want to say that that's naturally how your body works. Your diaphragm is an involuntary muscle, and when you yawn, it just falls and gets out of the way and it sucks air into your lungs. Now, we can kind of have some dysfunctional breathing patterns that bypass that a little bit and kind of keep everything up. But a lot of vocal coaches have gone away from using that because we want to be able to kind of directly experience things, go into a natural place. So if we put ourselves in a natural place and just allow our breathing to do what it's supposed to, hopefully it'll do a little bit of what it's supposed to. Let's experiment with that a little bit. Put one hand right kind of over your belly button. When you cough, when you sneeze, when you shout, it's most likely that you're breathing correctly, that the correct muscles are being engaged. So would you say, ha, 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 try it. Ha, ha, ha. So hopefully we have like a little bit of Santa Claus thing happening there. Your belly shakes when you laugh, like a bowl full of jelly. Engaging the right way. Now, here's where I tell you that I have a love-hate relationship with breathing exercises. Why? Because many to most instructors don't take the moment to say, we're going to do this breathing exercise, which is going to help you coordinate your muscles, and it's going to help you find the correct muscles to use, but it's also going to overdo it. Because if you take most breathing exercises and directly put them into singing, you will be over singing, you will be over breathing. So this next exercise is an exercise, and it will go further than we would go when we sing. So having that low awareness again, breathe into our hands and let's sing hum 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 hum. Try it, go hum 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 hum. So that initial huh, can you feel it? Like those muscles engage? Huh, huh, huh. So we're going a little bit of extra of that. So let's do a round of those. Here we go. Hum 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 hum. A half step. Hum 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 hum. A half step. Hum 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 hum. One more. Hum 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 hum. So if we fold that into singing, it's going to sound more like hum 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 instead of hum 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 hum. But those same muscles are going to engage. Great thing to kind of just start, check in with the body on. I'm going to bring you through my favorite trifecta warm-up, which is 3 different sounds on a very easy note pattern. And I want to talk through why I like it and why it works. You'll probably have heard, whether or not they've called it by this name, you've probably heard people talk about semi-occluded vocal tract exercises, or SOVTs. That would be anything that narrows or occludes or slightly blocks the vocal tract. The vocal tract, which starts between your vocal folds and it goes through the tip of your lips. So when we sing on like a letter V, try that, go, or the same thing on lip trill, or an NG sound. So anything on those sounds would fall into the camp of semi-occluded exercises. Singing through a straw would do that. Singing through a cup with a hole on it. Singing into a sort of closed fist. When you do that, you'll feel a little back pressure, right? Feel that back pressure? So I'd like to equate that to water aerobics. Okay? So regular aerobics, you're jumping around and your joints are impacted, but you get in the water and everything is supported. So that little bit of back pressure is going to allow the mechanics of our instrument to just be a little bit more guided and supported. It's like taking someone's hand when you walk up a step. It's not changing your whole life, necessarily leaning our whole body weight, but it's just like a little bit of guidance. So these semi-occluded exercises will make sure that our vocal folds are closing efficiently. Our vocal folds come together in a complex vibratory pattern, and we want to make sure that when they close, they're closing all the way. When I first started as a young singer, I had a fairly breathy tone. I think, ah, you hear all the air that's kind of escaping? Well, I would submit that a lot of the times things that we think are breath control issues are often our vocal folds not closing efficiently all the way. So these exercises like the lip trills and the NG sounds are really going to help with that. Also singing on the vowel E tends to help them be efficient as well. So the first part of our exercise, we're going to sing on a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Do it again. If you have trouble with lip trill, you can do it with your tongue out, like, or a rolled R. Or if all of those are challenging, you could sing like on a V or through a straw. The second one we're going to kind of glide into is an NG. So say the word sing, sing. Yeah, and so on that, the jaw just kind of hangs, sing, and then say sing and plug your nose, sing. Okay, so we've established that that sound comes through the nose. And as I've said before, we don't have a ton of control over that part of our vocal tract. We can't do too much movement. So this, in essence, is eliminating the variable of this resonating space. How much can we screw up our sound with our mouth? We put our tongue in the way, we over open, we don't open enough. This is going to bypass that. So we're going to do do this together. Nice. Now sometimes it's hard to coordinate going between the lip trill and the NG. Why is that? Well, we're changing the valve, right? Because we reroute. We go through our mouth and then we reroute it through our nose. But we want the airflow to continue. Just like if I was going to sing, Mary had a little lamb. I'm not going to start and stop the air for every single one of those. So we ideally want the air to flow through all of these. Now we're going to add the third one, which is a neigh sound. The neigh is going to allow us to have some of that efficiency of the as we did with the other, and then we're mildly going to go into a resonating space without over opening. So it's going to do neigh. Try it. Neigh. So you should probably feel some good efficiency by the time we get to that A sound without a lot of extra air. We're not kind of going into a weird, too open, dark place. Our tongue sits neutrally when we do that. Let's do some of these. We'll do these three. From there, up a half step, one more. So SOVTs, how I love thee, let me count the ways. What are they good for? They are absolutely good for working through your passaggio or your break. That extra little back pressure is much easier than singing it's like gets the yodel in there. So what we can do is we can back to back them and sing so we're eliminating variables. So what's happening in here with the vibrator remains steady. So we coaxed it through doing these semi-occluded vocal tract exercises. That's one that I would also encourage you using in the middle of your practice session. This is not just for warm-ups. So we're singing, and maybe we're singing something that feels unstable, like my bonnie lies over the ocean. It's like, oh gosh, that's all over the place. What do I do about it? Well, what if I sing that steadiness of tone is going to eliminate some variables and allow this part of my mechanism that's vibrating to really just do its job without my mouth messing it up. My bonnie lies over the... Oh, good. Now it's much smoother. It's an excellent thing to just have in your back pocket anytime you're working through stuff. So for a brief moment, chat box, do you have a favorite vocal warm-up? And if you feel like a bonus question, why do you like it? Do you have a favorite vocal warm-up? And if you feel like it, why do you like it? I'll just give you a moment to put that in. I would submit that it would be important for us to know why we're doing different exercises. At very least, what makes us sound good, even if we can't explain the mechanics of it. So when I sound like this, I can do this exercise to make it a little bit better. So when I was a young singer and I sang with a breathy tone, my bonnie lies over, my fix for that is more NG work. Over the ocean. Oh, look, my sound is engaged now. So we want to have these little, this little toolbox. I would encourage you to actually write it down and know when I'm having trouble with my break, here are exercises that I can do. Here are exercises that strengthen my passaggio. Here are exercises that work my transition between chest voice, head voice. Here are exercises which allow my vocal folds to work efficiently. So going through the things that you've put in, E's, the vowel E, tends to be quite an efficient vowel and also encourages those vocal folds. It also creates a vocal tract that is quite focused. Sometimes overly focused, and we have to add a little bit of space, going from wee to wee. So that's just a little something to be aware of there. If you sing like ga 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 or ga 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 on a g sound, that's going to allow the larynx to have a real floating quality to it. It's not going to be stuck anywhere. It's just going to be in kind of a neutral position. If your larynx is too low, sometimes it will create a very dark sound, but it can be used artistically in some genres. And more pop sound has it a little bit higher, and ga 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 will kind of allow that to be quite neutral. Glides and slides I love, and I like doing them on semi-occluded sounds. E vowels, E, and then opening to the more like ah. Why? Because those semi-occluded sounds are going to be more efficient for the vocal folds. Let's put them in the right place, and then we can open things up a little bit more into the next spot. Definitely, you'll notice that different things may work for you in different ranges. So if I'm working my low range, I might do why. I know that for me, that relaxes me into those low notes. If I'm working on higher stuff, I'm going to start with more of that semi-occluded and that sort of work, and then work up into that. So here's your challenge. Start to create a notebook, a file that tells you which exercises are working for you. I know that when I start and I sing, it's going to allow my breath to work, it's going to allow my vocal folds to be efficient, and then it's going to gently open up our resonators. If we want to work on vowel and resonance alignment between person to person or chorus member to chorus member, or if you're singing a small ensemble like a quartet or an octet, having a vowel that works great for you. Ne, ni, ne, no. And finding commonality rather than ne, ni, ne, no. So I'm looking to get rid of variables and then add things back in. So you have your challenge, which is to start writing stuff down, figure out which exercises do which things for you. If I want to work on, for example, agility, I might do something that's like me, me, my, mo, mo, that's moving around a little bit more, right? If I want to work on one that's great that I love to work on my middle range is he, and I can take that one up and down, and it just allows me to focus on moving back and forth between only two notes rather than taking an entire octave and be like, I'm going to practice my break 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 right? I just really need to work between 4 5 and 6. So all in those little areas. So those are great things to start thinking about on your own and start asking your teachers and your coaches and the people you work with. Do you have any thoughts, questions on that before we close this up and get everybody back in the main room?
I can comment.
Great.
When we were playing your warm-ups all through COVID on chorus rehearsal and always encouraging the lower range singers to vocalize up high, and they were very impressed when I told them that you actually weren't a tenor, you were a baritone. And I said, if Kathleen can hit all those high notes, then so can we.
Exactly. I regularly vocalize my lowest voices up as high as we can. My contraltos, my basses, because our instrument's as big as our instrument is. We're probably not going to gain too many more notes down, but we can often expand our high range quite a bit, and it has everything to do with that freedom that we were just working on. Glad to hear that. Yeah, a lot of people actually, I've gotten that from a lot of people. They're like, aren't you a tenor? I am not a tenor. I've sung tenor for singing Valentine's once. It was fun. I wonder if, were there any recurring themes that came up for either of you?
Well, my big one here was phlegm. So we just did the phlegm clearing exercise, which the first group that I work with did not get the phlegm clearing exercise, but the second two did.
Yeah, it seems like there was a lot of interest in registers and passaggio and navigating the break, and then also just vocal health, getting back into it after a pandemic of not having a lot of voice use. So, yeah.
How about for you, Kathleen? Did you find in your sessions?
Yeah, lots of things about passaggio for sure, and just kind of working that ease into the sound.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it looks like we got questions coming in.
We sure do. Let me take a stab. Debra, would you please just refresh real quick your ya-ya warm-up?
Yes, I will. I'd be happy to. I start on a D above middle C, usually, or the D above the C below for guys. Ya, 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 ya. Just a 5-3, 5-3-1 pattern with the intention of lifting up the final note.
Great.
Was that enough, Noreen? Did I give you enough?
Can I do my ya-ya exercise?
Yeah, you do your ya-ya
I have a
exercise.
different one. Yeah, so
Okay, go.
This is a ya-ya showdown here.
All right, here we go.
take your hands onto the jaw, and we want to keep the jaw still. Ya, 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 ya. We want the jaw to be still, and the tongue is going to do a ton of motion. Ya, 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 ya. It's a great way to sort of get some tongue flexibility. Different than Debra Lynn's warm-up, but also
Fantastic. And so,
yeah.
well, let me just add a piece. So that's great, Kai, because the jaw, in the one that I'm doing, it's a jaw isolation. It's just releasing the, yes. Bravo.
Nice.
Right, and
Okay,
I'm totally
Kathleen.
gonna tie that together because it's great to practice the isolation and it's great to practice the movement. So mine, I like yeah, which has just this very gentle chewing motion that combines the jaw and the tongue into that yeah. You're welcome.
That's awesome.
I'm telling you, we knew this was going to be like this crazy night. We just didn't know exactly what was going to happen. I love it. That's awesome.
Question from Anita. To support difficult transitions between registers, should we be tightening our diaphragms, or is it bad to tense this?
All right, we're going to have probably different approaches to this.
Yes.
So let's dive in and let's just go. Okay, Kathleen.
Cool. I talked about diaphragm in at least two of my breakouts. Diaphragm is an involuntary muscle, but it's important to breathe. So when we breathe, we use it. Your body just uses it. So we're talking about controlling this breathing mechanism, muscles with natural breathing. And I kind of think of the band around the midsection of our body. When our diaphragm flattens, the midsection of our body opens like this. Now, when we go through passagios, there's a little delicate places in our voices. The word passaggio is a little passageway. So we don't necessarily want to throw a bunch of air at that because we don't want to oversing through it. Sometimes we have to feel like we're going through it. Now, the sensation might feel to you like we have to engage our breathing muscles ever so slightly to get through that.
Yeah. All right, so go. Okay, you go, Kai.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah, so like Kathleen said, so the diaphragm is a muscle of inspiration, inhalation, not exhalation. And yeah, so what the question is probably asking is actually, are we tightening this area, which is not your diaphragm. But if that's your question, I would say also probably no. Or we should be maintaining a gentle expansion of the ribs and keeping this area nice and loose so that the air pressure underneath the vocal folds is staying consistent, allowing the vocal folds to shift as they change registers. So my short answer is no.
Yeah. Okay, good. So we are all in agreement. I love this. Okay, so my favorite story about the diaphragm is the NATS study that was done. I think probably by now it's been 25 years ago. And the question was, can you control your diaphragm? And the answer was no. And they spent it was a ridiculous amount of money. I want to say it was $1 million studying the diaphragm. So in the bel canto process, the passaggio piece actually goes away. in time, but it's because in this work, just like Kathleen said, and just like Kai said, so it's the same idea of, okay, this open rib, lower band of the rib engagement. But what happens is, you both know the Bernoulli effect, right? Do you know that term? So Bernoulli effect, boom. All right, so we're just gonna go like equal and opposite pressure. What happens with these mechanics is, because of the way that we're gonna reinforce this sort of balance across the folds, which, like Kai, what you're talking about is going to basically try to minimize that. You're not even feeling passaggio in this work, but it takes a little bit of time, because the impulse in the body is to do exactly what you're saying, is to kind of give it a little juice. Yeah. And so the answer is no. But it's hard to not give it juice, right? It's a little hard to just sort of suspend the instrument. Yeah.
Right, because if we cut off there, if we do opposite of that, it's not going to help. So I think my middle ground comment was, sometimes it might feel that way a little bit, with a little bit of encouragement, rather than shutting down or tensing up.
Yeah,
and,
right.
Yeah, because, sorry.
No, it's okay.
As we shift registers, as the vocal folds thin out, which is what they're doing as we go through our passaggio, whether we experience it, clearly or not, if optimized bel canto, right, we're not going to experience that. But what's happening is the vocal folds are going like this. And what the result of that is more air is going to be passing through, just because the vocal folds are resisting it less, because they are thinner. And so as we do that, we need to balance that with less pressure underneath. And we don't want to push more underneath, because that's just going to blow the vocal folds apart, and we'll get that breathy sound, which is what folks probably often are experiencing as they shift.
Yeah,
very helpful.
And that's why. Let me just add one little tiny quick piece of us. I've a little phrase lately: be a cello, not a bellow.
Love it.
There you go. This seems to be a very common thing happening these days. The person is asking about advice for acid reflux and GERD in singers.
So I was diagnosed at one point with acid reflux, and then I was put on Prilosec, and I started doing research, because it didn't work for me. I didn't solve the problem, and I was feeling things in my throat. And I started researching dietary and et cetera, et cetera. Well, an interesting thing is blood type. If you look at blood types and the blood type process, A's in particular have low stomach acid. So in my case, I wasn't digesting my food at all, because there wasn't enough acid, not because there was too much. And so my homeopathic guide put me on HCl, which actually I still take a little bit, which is just literally like giving the stomach some acid to digest the food with. And all the vocal problems went away. So I think that it's really good to research deeper into that particular subject as to what the cause is of that symptom that you're having. What do you guys think?
I think I've mentioned it before that I'm a huge proponent of full body health, and I know that different things work for different people, but generally GERD, acid reflux, is either caused from a faulty valve that's not closing as it should, which might be caused from dysbiosis or dietary things that we're eating that we probably shouldn't, or what Debra just said, actually low acid. But definitely under a doctor's supervision.
Yeah, you need to have somebody walk you through it, because it's complicated. Because there can be, one of the challenges is, if acid is actually getting to the folds, an ENT looking at your folds is also important, because they can tell from what the folds are doing, like there's an excessive amount of mucus that will start to develop around the folds, because they're trying to protect themselves from it. So good to see an ENT. Always anytime you're having anything here, for me, it's like, and you want an ENT that knows how to deal with singers.
Right.
Singers.
Right. This one, my chorus members are asking, how do they sing louder safely? Some overachieve and end up shouting. I'm sure you have never heard that, the three of you, right?
Never.
Being socially distant and singing in masks add to the problem. Why don't we go to you first, Kai?
Yeah. Well, there's a number of things to talk about here. But with my singers, just building an awareness of their own voice and how to sing louder healthily is the most important thing, and putting them in a riser position, a spot on the risers where they're not competing with other voices and trying to sing louder to be heard over others, making sure everyone's spaced out enough that the Lombard effect doesn't come into play and we aren't trying to sing louder to hear ourselves. To sing louder, it does require a little bit more energy and more potentially a different resonance strategy. And so I will have, sometimes with my chorus, we'll do different exercises to find the emotion of the volume, so that the volume is driven by emotion rather than by physical effort or trying to sing louder. So we'll be like, hey, where it is loud, it's a really loud sound, but it's not, hey, a pushed, shouty, loud sound. Is that, yeah?
Yep.
Thoughts, Kathleen, Deborah?
Yeah, Kathleen, what's your...
I think the word loud is fairly loaded semantically. So we have different types of loud. And so before I would go straight to the word loud, I would experiment with a broader resonance and checking in with a physical feeling of how am I singing with an expanded sound rather than pressing. And especially when, you mentioned riser position, masks came up, proximity to others has come up. The idea of creating the right types of overtone in your voice is actually what's going to create the sensation of volume. It's not quite the same as just turning a knob up like you would on your radio. We get into a really, really deep and nerdy conversation about things like formants and overtones. But in general, if we sing with a good, healthy coordination of our instrument and sing with an expanded resonant sound, once those mechanics are all set up in a safe place, then we can add a little bit of, volume to it, as long as we then don't squish the resonant overtone stack that we've set up.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that what I'm about to do is pull that together in a lovely little bow too. So what Cay just demonstrated by the activation of his onset, when he articulated with the intensity with which that volume would expand, all right? And then with Kathleen also talking a bit more about sort of this resonant thing and how we activate the sound, all right? So in bel canto, because the magic is in you, not out of you, that you are this amazing resonant acoustic instrument, and we're used to activating this way. So the thrust, and I think with the mask, that's what's bothersome, is that when we're trying to do breathing mechanics in a big way, that mask is really annoying and it will make you feel like you have to really thrust to go through it. In bel canto, we're never trying to go through it. We're activating like Cay just did, but we're going boom, straight up. So real quick, let me just show you all the distinction between loud and soft in bel canto. So have you ever been irritated with an adult? It's the first question also. Like they've just messed up your car or something's happened and they don't understand what you're saying to them, and we start to bite our consonants and we articulate with a little more edge. That activation of an onset will cause, especially if you go right up your mask, will cause a huge expansion of sound, but you didn't actually get louder. And then if you are irritated with your pet or your small child and you bring that down and you start articulating as if they've just really annoyed you, and you articulate with that kind of intensity in that small way, it will make a beautiful pianissimo. Again, not going through anything, but actually just activating it within your own body. So thank you for that.
Can I answer one question that was put in the chat? Was a coach said stop pressing, but I didn't know what that meant, right? What we're talking about with press is the vocal folds are going right and really coming together really hard, often as a result of too much subglottal pressure. So maybe tightening here or a collapse of the ribs or just extra physical effort, or just tightness or squeeze here. It's causing that press. What we are, I think, are all saying is we want the vocal folds to stay in that healthy phonation, that healthy flow phonation, where the vocal folds are just gently coming together, and they may be in a thicker formation like we were kind of talking about before to sort of assist in the volume, but we're getting the sensation of loudness or or resonance or expanded sound through everything that's happening above the vocal folds rather than shifting what we're doing at the vocal fold level.
That's right. The vocal folds themselves are not doing it. It's what's
Right.
happening above us. Yes. Bravo.
Someone, someone is also asking about starting off first notes in a song with as much power, is the word she uses, as the later notes. Can you address that?
Well, what I would say is for me, there's an inner timing in the mechanism that has to do with the actual space that we're using. So for me, the pharyngeal wall is our best friend. And when we actually get all the way open, and the way you can practice this, I'll just have everybody try this real quick, is if everybody breathes in thinking this note, just breathe in for this note. Just like you're gonna prep for that low note. Okay, and you don't have to sing it, just breathe for it. Okay, and now breathe in for this note. And you can feel how the inner space adjusts itself for the higher note. So in bel canto, what's happening is we're going to actually activate the inner space to be more poised towards that higher space all the time. And that activation of that pharyngeal wall, because of that, it kind of puts you in the optimal position so that right when you articulate, your volume is determined by your artistry, your activation, like Kai's saying with the onset. It's happening as a result of your thought. It's like a thought, not a thing. And your position or how your instrument has opened will allow you to do it at whatever volume you're supposed to do it. So the accuracy is with the inner stability or the inner prep, if you will. Yeah. Kathleen or Cay, either one.
The shorthand I've heard for that often, and you may have heard this before, is breathe on the vowel space. Mm-hmm. So let's create an sound and then already have this set up and ready to go. I talked in my segment about understanding the different parts of our instrument, having everything set up and ready to receive the coordination when the breath comes up and it hits the vocal folds and they vibrate and we create phonation. Is the space ready to receive that yet? And often our mouth is too closed and we start singing before we've created the space to receive that.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah, Cay.
One other thing that might be playing into this is we have a resting lung volume, and then we inhale so that we have some air to sing, and then we use that. And often singers will actually push beyond that to use the very last bit of their air. And what that ends up doing is the whole instrument collapses, their abdominals tighten, and we're not singing our best. And then it takes a whole lot more work to reestablish ease and relaxation on the inhale. So I would say bringing focus to the breath and making sure that every time you have a breath in the song, if you're in a chorus, you can do this as many times as you want, wherever you want. But in a solo performance or a quartet performance, every time you have a breath, making sure that that's reestablishing your alignment, making sure it's reestablishing your relaxation in the body so that we aren't continually putting ourselves in a position of collapse and less good management of the air.
Yeah, and I'll take it one step farther, that you can actually have a mindset that your preparatory breath is actually always the same. It feels the same. It opens the same way. The body feels open the same way every single time. If you start thinking that way, it becomes much less of a big deal and much more like a personal practice. Yeah,
a habit. Yeah,
it's just a habit, a muscle memory, if you will, of what the body needs to do at that moment.
And this seems like the great question to end this session on, because it's something we all as singers think about. What are your top tips for self-diagnosis of problems or bad habits, and then correcting them during warm-ups, between lessons with a teacher, and eventually without a teacher? Loaded question.
Loaded. Yeah, can you just...
Do we have another hour?
Just go ahead. Say it one more time. Just say one more time.
Your top tips for self-diagnosing your own problems or habits.
Yeah.
And how to self-correct them, such as through using warm-ups and independently when you're not having your coach or your teacher there.
Yeah, got it.
I can answer that in 2 words.
Go, Kathleen.
Eliminate variables. Eliminate variables. So we talked about kind of breaking things down. So let's just do it on a... I've eliminated the variable of what's happening resonating. You know what I'm saying? When I break stuff down, what's causing the problem? Is it the word somewhere over the rainbow? Okay, that I'm not doing anything weird with my vowels. Is it the range? Is it my passaggio? Oh, it makes the vowel.
Lovely. I love that. Eliminate variables. I don't know. Can we top that, Kai? I don't.
That's a
90
great
seconds
one.
each.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So I'd say this. Go ahead. Did you have a thought?
Yeah, I mean, so I know, and I know Kathleen is very similar in her approach, where it's like we are our best singers when we understand our instrument best, right? And as in my lessons, at least, I'll just talk. We're working to build a personal understanding of where are we feeling potential tensions, where are we feeling areas that get tight or help unnecessarily, or habits that are counterproductive, and building that self-awareness of your instrument and how it functions at its best. And so building that awareness allows you, even when you don't have a teacher, or even when you're just singing in the chorus, you can build that awareness and be aware of, oh, that's doing something that is not actually helping, or that's doing something that's getting in the way. Then you can check that through movement or through massage or just monitoring or just bringing awareness to it and aiming to release whatever tension is holding you back, or whatever habit is getting in your way. So I think building awareness and understanding your instrument is the best tip that I could give.
Yeah, and so I'll like piggyback on both of you as well. So I think that one of the things that over the years of teaching folks, what I have really, it's become very clear to me that we are all unique. We are designed, our brains are unique, how we process is unique. Some of us are way more visual and analytical, some are way more kinesthetic, some of us are, like if you learn well with learning tracks, your auditory, because some people can't, they're difficult to do without some of these other pieces. But what I will often say is that somehow I have to help you be kinesthetic, even if you're not naturally kinesthetic. And that sort of ties to Kai. We have to, as we're noticing things, and what you might do is with self-diagnosis, depending on what your primary brain process is just take little notes. Just, have a little sheet like on this song, on this phrase, this is bothersome to me, and circle it. Like just find the spots that aren't working effectively. And instead of maybe trying to figure it out on the fly, go back afterwards and try singing through that section again. And is it still problematic? And if it is, there's something going on in the music that's exacerbating. Like I talk about 4 potholes. Okay, there's 4: the 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 R, and the L. And anytime the R, the the L, and the L show up in a song, they tend to take us out of our process, out of our phrase control. So just little things that you can notice in the music that are causing you to collapse. And I would just add one little piece for those, if we do like Kathleen, just somewhere over the rainbow, if we go somewhere over the rainbow, the English language collapses on every single syllable. And so we are going to be prone to this. So just knowing that it might not be your fault. It's not personal. It's mechanical. Something's going wrong, but it's not you, and just give yourself a little hug and say, it's going to be okay. And then seek advice.
Yeah. Just to add one, I know for me, when I'm like rehearsing myself, like sometimes I'll get in this rut where I'm just not making progress. And so to what you just said at the end there, where like, don't get frustrated at yourself is number one, right? Because when I'm with myself, I'm like, oh, why is this not working? And it's just because I'm frustrated by myself, and that mental stress is manifesting as physical stress. So that is, if you're self-diagnosing, let it be fun, let it be exploratory, and not.
And curiosity, and be curious about it. If something's not right, there's something not right, but it's not necessarily you.
Mm-hmm.
Stop, breathe, begin again. Stop, breathe, begin again. Stop, breathe.
And eliminate variables. So basically, I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight and participating again in this event. This was we're trying to develop some programs that are going to be helpful to singers, helpful to those that are trying to get back after this pandemic. We are, all of us here, and any voice teacher I know is wanting you to have more ease and effortlessness. And so there are lots of options in this world. But whether you're singing solo or with a group, please feel free to reach out to any one of the three of us. I know Kathleen, Cay, or I would be happy to assist you anytime, and you just need to reach out. I'd love to give some applause to our fantastic tech team behind the scenes, Sue, Vanessa, and Suzanne. Thank you so much for your work, and Sue and Vanessa for all your front end work that you did to make this possible. Next on the agenda, Singers Symposium is going to be working on an event for vocal production issues associated with COVID recovery, as well as a performance event for those that are trying to get through anxiety, minimizing anxiety and being more effective on the stage. So you can keep an eye on the Singers Symposium Facebook page, or my Debra Lynn Belcanto, or Cay or Kathleen. Anyone that's been a part of this will have information about future things as they come. You will receive a follow-up email with the link for tonight's recording. Okay, it will be available for access for at least the next month. As this was a special paid event, we are going to ask you sincerely not to share it on social media. All right, it's really just for you. And if you have additional topics or questions that you would like to have us address in a future event, just please feel free to communicate with us via Facebook on the Singers Symposium page or by email. I know I am happy to chat with anyone, anytime. And so glad that you were able to be with us tonight. We wish you well in your singing and hope that we will see you again in some future event.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you, everyone.
Thank you, Cay, and thank you, Kathleen.
Awesome
Debra.
session. To the three of
Fantastic
you.
work tonight.
We had
Thank
so
you.
much fun talking, didn't we?
It was a good time. It was a good time.
It was a great time. Thank you all for coming.